on here, and Bryn, why don't you take it over?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bryn Lemon. I'm the Scholarships and Alumni Engagement Coordinator in our office in Santa Barbara. I am an alumna of our programs. I studied abroad at the University of Edinburgh in 2015 to 16 for a year. After that, I graduated from UCSB and moved back to Edinburgh and worked in our study center for UCEAP. And then I went on to teach English in Chile for a year, and now I am back and working in our office here. And I'm so excited to introduce Isabella Fortier and to you all to give you some insight into working in France.
Hi, my name's Isabella. I studied abroad at the Bordeaux program actually for 1 semester from 2019 to 2020, and I'm currently back in Bordeaux teaching English for a year through the French government, and I'm really excited to share what I know about studying abroad and working abroad afterwards.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll get started. Everyone can see the slide, right? How study abroad fits into your future career. And Elizabeth and Bryn. So let's see, next slide. So this is sort of, you've heard the rumor and you probably know this already, but yes, we do agree, study abroad really can help your career. This slide is about soft skills, and we'll talk about hard skills and transferable skills as well. But first of all, studying abroad, foreign language experience, and even if you're not studying in a country where there is a foreign language, while abroad, you communicate in a new way daily and develop important cross-cultural communication skills. A few studies out there say that 72% of all employers believe that a second language is important on a resume. And I'm sure you all know that studying at a UC, language acquisition is really important and helpful. And it's true that while you might not use these language skills in a day-to-day use while you're on the job, but you never know that there might be a job out there where you could use that French. Isabella will talk about that. Or you could use that, a little bit of Japanese that you pick up while you're on that program. So French, foreign language experience is a positive for your career. I'll talk about transversal skills, and that's what they used to call soft skills. And 90% of employers are looking for these types of skills. Openness, curiosity about challenges, work ethic, problem solving, decision making. And we hear all the time about stories about students while they're abroad that have, sometimes they talk about how difficult it was, especially in the beginning, figuring out how to get money, figuring out where to take your trash, things like that. There's a lot of little simple things that we take for granted here in the US that because you've done every day. But when you're abroad, you have to figure that out. And so it takes a lot of problem solving. And putting yourself out there and taking risks. And those are the types of skills that employers are looking for. So when you come back and you're working on your resume and you're working on your interviews and your questions and how you're to present yourself, you can talk about those types of experiences that took you sort of out of your comfort zone and how you were able to come around and solve some of those challenges. And those are things that employers are really looking at. Those are real life skills that are transferable. Salary and speed. Now, Bryn and I we're not so sure about this one, but studies show that a greater percentage of study abroad alumni graduate on time, find jobs faster, and earn a higher starting salary. Now, I will say that since you're here and you've shown that you're working hard to plan your academic career and your progression towards graduation, probably more likely that you will, when you finish and you graduate and you come back, that you are going to be looking for a job and applying yourself as hard as you applied yourself to get into UC and to work and excel there. So I think that's probably true, that study abroad participants do graduate on time or faster and find jobs faster.
As a tidbit to that, I studied abroad for an entire year and still graduated a semester early. So it is possible. It depends on your major and the way that you structure your classes and how miserable you want to be in your last semester doing 6 classes at once. So
the last thing I'll say on types of skills here, project management. And this is one that hopefully you're probably using day in and day out right now as far as managing your workload and studying and everything when it comes to being a college student. But living abroad will put you outside of your comfort zone. This process requires quick processing and can be applied to handling high intensity and demanding roles. I know that there's a lot of, some people like to multitask, some people don't, but however you manage to get through whatever you need to get done that day, managing your time, managing the list of things you have to get done, figuring out your class schedule while you're abroad, making it to all those classes. All of that is managing tasks, and those types of skills, if presented in a way, to future employers, really will look good on your resume and during an interview. Oh, I think I passed a slide here. Hold on. So as far as practical skills, there's quite a few practical skills that are relevant when you study abroad. One of them is preparing for graduate study. A lot of you I know probably have plans to go on to graduate school. One of the things you can do while you're on study abroad is conduct a research project with professors and graduate students in your field and build a portfolio for graduate school. Other things you can do is work on your presentation skills. In a research or an internship program, you'll take your skills and ideas and perspectives to a new level. You'll be learning new methods for developing and presenting your work. Another thing that I think is really positive is you can find a mentor when you're abroad. A research program, we have research options and internship options, but if you choose one of these, you can identify a mentor. Choosing an internship program if you want the intercultural skills to build great work relationships and a list of professional contacts who can help you get the best job after graduation. And then the last thing about it is real world workplace skills. Add real world workplace skills to your resume while living and working abroad. Get the career training you need for success. So I know when I went on to graduate school, I had worked already previously in some other areas. And when I got to graduate school, I was really savvy when it came to Excel and Word and PowerPoint. And a lot of my, this was a long time ago, I'm much older than all of you. A lot of other students weren't. And it really did, it gave me an advantage to know some of those skills. And so working if you decide that this is important for you to get that practical training while you're abroad, with a research program or internship program, that is something that you can do. Anyone have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but if you have questions about any of these slides, if not, you can ask at any time. Bryn, I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic. All right. So we have a wonderful opportunity right now to speak to a recent alumna of our programs, Isabella, who has already introduced herself. So what we want to start out with is just a general description of what you're doing right now and where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm doing a program called TEPIF, where native English speakers teach in France for a year or two, and we work with the French government and teach directly in different public schools. So that's what I'm doing this year. I'm teaching English at 2 high schools in Bordeaux, the same city where I studied abroad. And at the same time, I'm applying for masters and thinking about what I'm going to do next.
Fantastic. Throw in a curveball question here that I didn't prepare you for, but how do you think living abroad and working abroad versus studying abroad changes your perspective of the city that you're in?
I think when you're studying abroad, which was a wonderful experience all around, you very much live a student life. So the restaurants you go to, the bars you go to, the parks you go to, you sort of stay in the same area. But when you live and work in a city, you're forced for your job to go to other parts of the city that are not the places that students are hanging out. No one's going near a random high school to be a college student studying abroad. So it's been a really great experience to get to explore much more of the city and get a more holistic understanding of it, not just through the study abroad lens.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I had a very similar experience in Edinburgh. So how did your experiences on UCEAP prepare you for your professional life?
I studied political science at UCLA, and I also was part of the Daily Bruin, which is the newspaper at UCLA. So journalism and political science have always been the things I've been interested in pursuing professionally. And studying abroad, I think, is inherently a very political experience. You're very exposed to different cultures, you're navigating another culture. And I also studied political science in France, in French. So I got to learn about politics through a completely different lens than I could have ever experienced in the US. And I think while I still definitely want to pursue a career in political science and journalism, studying abroad widened my horizons in terms of what I thought was possible in that field. Also, before studying abroad, I hadn't seriously considered graduate school because it is so expensive and I didn't know how useful it might necessarily be. But after studying abroad, it is something I'm very much interested in pursuing.
That's fantastic. We did have a question in the chat from Danielle, which was, how was it applying to graduate degrees abroad? But I believe you haven't yet begun the process of applying. Is that correct?
So I have begun the process of applying, and I actually haven't applied to any domestic programs in the US. So in a way, I kind of can't compare that experience to applying abroad. But it has been interesting navigating applying to graduate programs abroad because there's no common application that or something that you can use to apply to each university. It's an individual process for each one. But I've been very lucky also to have met mentors through studying abroad in France, in the UC system, but also at the university where I studied. And so they have been very, very helpful helping me navigate this. And I think that's also a really important part is when you study abroad, it doesn't just have to be this short experience for a few months. You really can make lasting connections with students, but also with mentors and professionals who can continue to help you afterwards.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do you have any particular advice for students who want to form that type of mentorship relationship while they are abroad? Was there anything in particular that you did to forge those types of relationships?
I think this falls under general advice as well, but when you're studying abroad, put yourself out there and go for every opportunity. Really, a lot of your professors would love to speak with you, and the UC staff at your university would also love to have a relationship with you. And so it can be intimidating at first, but I would say just set up those meetings, approach your professional and academic connections the same way that you're approaching the rest of your experience. Like go out and meet new students, go out and explore the city, and also go out and make connections with the professors at your university. And I also was very lucky with the UCEAP team at my university. They were very interested in starting an environmentally friendly program. And that's something I'm really passionate about. And so I happened to mention that offhand one time where I brought in a reusable cup with me. And then through that, I ended up connecting more with the staff. So also just share what you're passionate about and pursue what you're passionate about, not just academics. And that'll help you make connections too.
It's funny, those serendipitous little moments, isn't it, where you bring a reusable cup and suddenly there's a new connection formed. That's wonderful. So I know that we want to leave room for questions and for some wrap-up slides, but I do want to ask you what you feel was the most impactful part of your program on UCEAP.
I think that in terms of studying abroad in general, I think that taking all of my courses in another language was very, very impactful. I specifically chose my courses to make sure that I could complete my degree on time. I transferred to UCLA, and so it was really important to me that I finished in 2 years and I stayed on track. But I also was able to take all those courses in French, and that was that was really such a unique experience to be so completely immersed in French culture. And I think you can study abroad and take courses in English, and that's really fantastic. I know many people who did that. But if you have the opportunity to really take courses in another language, that's just not a chance you get very frequently. If you continue to live abroad, work abroad, you will probably know many professionals who speak English. But when you're forced to actually go to university in a different language, that, as I said, that's just not a chance that you get very often. And also, having the support of the UCEAP staff was a very important part of my experience. I'm still in contact with most of the UCEAP staff from Bordeaux, and I work on projects with them now. And so having that support, I think, really shaped my experience too.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful to have that type of support behind you. And I heard you mention that you transferred to UCLA. I didn't know that. So that really speaks to the ability to fit a UCEAP program within the traditional four-year path then, and even within a transfer two-year path. So that's fantastic.
And it wasn't something I initially thought I would be able to do. So I didn't seriously consider study abroad. And then I went to some sort of in-person fair, sort of like this online one. And then I thought, you know what, why don't I give it a shot? And so I studied abroad. And then as soon as I got back to the US, I actually did the UCDC program, where I did an internship in Congress in Washington, DC. And so it's to anyone who's interested in studying abroad, if you're worried about completing your major on time or anything. I mean, I transferred and I was able to do both of these study abroad programs that both align with my career goals. So I'd highly, highly recommend taking advantage of the opportunity.
That's incredibly ambitious to have done two programs. And I know that some of the students mentioned internships. Would you recommend, I mean, the experiences must have been incredibly different. What would you say was the biggest takeaway from your internship in terms of your professional goals?
So I am interested in pursuing a career in politics or in journalism, and I had a communications internship with a congressman. And I would highly recommend trying to find an internship that is in your career field, because I learned a lot about Congress in general. I also learned a lot about what I do not want about a job in the future. But then also things I really did enjoy about my job. It was a fantastic experience. And I think that it's just great exposure to really figure out what your goals are and what your personal wants and needs are out of a job in the future.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was going to mention on an earlier slide about internships. We also offer a Scottish parliamentary internship as well as an Irish parliamentary internship. So if there are any students like Isabella in the audience who are interested in politics, those are some really great options. If anyone has any questions for Isabella, please put them into the chat and we're happy to relay them to her and ask them. But Elizabeth, should we do those final housekeeping slides just to ensure we get them in before the hour closes, and we can continue with the Q&A after?
I think why don't you give a little bit about your background and what you did after Edinburgh? And
Absolutely. So some of you may be interested in working in the UK. I actually was a participant on this wonderful program following graduation, where I was a program intern in the Edinburgh Study Centre. Unfortunately, right now, due to COVID, those programs are suspended, but there is an opportunity in both Scotland and in London. So if you are interested in getting to know what it's like to work in higher education, to work for a study abroad program in particular, and give back to the program that you love, then I would highly recommend it. I would certainly second many of the things that Isabella said about living abroad versus working abroad versus studying abroad, in the sense that you really get more entrenched in your city. You become, I think, far more familiar with the sides of the city that students don't get to see. And while I was living abroad for that job, I was traveling in Italy and ended up speaking to some people in very broken Spanish, and decided I needed to learn a little more about Spanish. And so I moved to Chile to teach. And it was an amazing experience. If you are interested in teaching abroad in any way, I would recommend finding a country with a language that you'd like to develop, and finding the safest, most secure program that you can. I found a little school that supported my moving there. Some people go through the government, as Isabella is doing. That's a very popular route in Spain. There are also other countries that allow you to have a working visa up until the age of 30 or 35 in New Zealand and Australia, respectively. So if you are interested in teaching abroad and just getting out of the country for a year, I would highly recommend it. It's an amazing experience. You learn a lot about your own independence and ability to rely on yourself, and certainly navigating the world through another language without the structure of a university is a very different and sometimes jarring experience, but you grow tremendously from it. So if anyone has any questions about teaching abroad, I would be more than happy to answer them in the chat, and I'm sure Isabella would as well. So please feel free to pop those in there.
So I put up the next steps.
Awesome. In the meantime, while we wait for any additional questions to wrap things up, I will just discuss with you the next steps. So if you are a student interested in studying abroad, we do highly encourage you to explore the UCEAP website. This is where you'll find a tremendous amount of resources about different program options, as well as funding, finances, and some student testimonials. We also recommend that you visit your campus study abroad office website for information on application steps and deadlines. And I will put the information for all of the different study abroad offices into the chat to make sure that you have the correct campus contact information if you have additional questions about the application process. We also recommend that you start an application by selecting the Apply Now button on the UCEAP website. So when you are ready to pick that program, and whether that program is France, Scotland, Chile, or another absolutely wonderful program, then we recommend you hit the Apply Now button and get into our system. You can contact the system-wide office for more information. Here is the email. We also offer office hours, so you can either scan the QR code here using your camera phone, or I've put the link in the chat. Through these office hours, you can discuss your particular program interests with a program staff member, or I also work in scholarships here. So if you have a question about scholarship funding or anything to do with finance, then you're welcome to schedule a session with me or with any of our finance team. And on that note, if you have any questions about following up with our alumni team, we will leave our email here in the final slide for you. If you have any interest in joining our community or speaking to alumni and maintaining that contact, we're more than happy to stay in touch with you and give you any additional information that you may be seeking. Beyond that, Isabella, do you want to just share perhaps a funny story about your study abroad experience in the last few minutes here? I think you're still muted just now.
I'm trying to think of a good one in particular. This isn't so much a funny story, but this was a really important part of my study abroad experience. I studied abroad at Sciences Po in Bordeaux, and part of my way to try and make friends with French people was I joined the soccer team at the university, and it was really, really important to me, and it was the one souvenir I really wanted was a soccer jersey from the team, but there was some problem with getting the jerseys, and I went back to the US after one semester, so I didn't end up getting one. And I was very, very mad about this for the longest time. And then I came back this year and I decided that I would just keep, going and playing soccer with the Sciences Po soccer team, and they let me. And it was a really great way to make more friends, connect with old friends, especially with COVID and everything going on. And I just, this week, finally, they received a soccer jersey. They let me get one for the team this year. So,
so yeah. Exciting.
This story means way too much to me. When the captain gave me the jersey, she's like, and after 1 year of waiting for Isabella. So
that's so beautiful. I think
so I get my souvenir finally.
Yeah, it's funny, the souvenirs that become the most meaningful to you from your study abroad programs that you would never have anticipated. My ex-boyfriend's mother gave me a tiny little keychain of a little kilt, and it just means the world to me. It's so nice to have those little mementos that remind you of the people that you form connections with abroad. So that's a really beautiful story, and I'm glad you're still involved with that. That's another great thing you can get involved with abroad is sports. I took up rock climbing while I was in Edinburgh for the first time. So there's always something new on the horizon.
And if you play soccer, it's like as international of a language as you can get. It's something I mentioned in most of my graduate school applications, actually. Because I still go and just play on weekends with random people from the city of Bordeaux. No matter what language we speak, we can all play soccer together. So it's always an insanely useful way to meet new people and form a community.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great 100%. Advice. Well, thank you. We hope you all will decide to study abroad with UCEAP. And as Bryn said, if you have any questions, there's our email address. And we are so happy that you joined us here tonight.
Thank you to everyone who joined us. And thank you so much to Isabella. And if you have any questions, we hope to hear from you.